So it's been a week of self-reflection for the University of Texas as they had the bye week to think about that embarrassing road loss in Stillwater to the Oklahoma State Cowboys, the same Oklahoma State team that just got crushed over this past weekend by Kansas State, actually. So now Texas gets their opportunity. They're going into Bill Snyder Stadium to take on this Kansas State Wildcats with a dynamic running game. We know what they're going to bring you. Adrian Martinez has been a little bit of a reclamation project coming from Nebraska. But this week, I'm going to pinpoint all eyes are going to be on Steve Sarkisian. We talked about it in another video, kind of what Sark's shortcomings are or have been as the head coach of the Texas Longhorns. Like, how often can you afford to just keep losing these games in which you have a lead in which your team is set up to win, and then you just blow it late? Like, that just becomes a problem over time when you've already outpaced the previous head coach that no one liked, but actually won a bunch of games in just less than 2 years and leads blown. That's what Steve Sarkisian's resume is starting to accumulate a bunch of. So now you're going in a slight favorite on the road, 2.5, same things we say every week with Texas. You're the more talented team. Kansas State, they've been a surprise team this year. They've been a good story this year, but you should have enough horses to beat them and add in, you've had 2 weeks to think about this and game plan for this one. Give me reasons why I should be down on Texas this week, Kyle.
Oh, you want me to be pessimistic about Texas? Ooh, I like this.
Yeah, I think it's fair. I think we're too rosy sometimes. They get a big victory and everyone, for lack of better terms, sucks their dick. And then we go into the next week and think, oh, everything's going to be hunky-dory. And same spot, we have another disappointing loss. So I think it's good to have a little pessimism every once in a while.
All right, so let's talk about why Duece Vaughn is going to rush for 240 yards against Texas this week. All right. In actuality, I think the most Big 12 shit would be if Duece Vaughn is like 9 carries for 30 yards, because fuck it, that's the Big 12 this year. He just put up 200 yards against Oklahoma State last week. Who cares? Now he's going to go for 30 yards because that's what the Big 12 is, and Texas is going to look like the team that shut out Alabama for 2.5 quarters. You mentioned Adrian Martinez. We don't know exactly if Adrian Martinez is going to play or not. He missed last week's game. Will Howard is the backup quarterback for Kansas State, and he played pretty good against Oklahoma State, given that they won 48-0. So we don't actually know exactly who the quarterback is going to be for Kansas State. I don't think it changes the game plan much. It's not like Adrian Martinez is this wow quarterback that changes the game.
Basically, Kansas State's recipe for success has been hiding Adrian Martinez in the game plan. And while he's rebounded nicely, he doesn't cost them games like he would cost them games in Nebraska. He's not the focal point of the offense anymore, and that's been the best thing for his college career. It limited his ability to ever turn into any kind of NFL prospect, but that's how Adrian Martinez is where he is right now in Kansas State.
Nebraska was the reason he was never going to go to the NFL. Nebraska already did that job for him.
Yeah, Nebraska knocked him into, at best, one of those undrafted free agent quarterbacks that just kind of bounces around, still has a little bit of recognition because of their high school prospect status. But yeah, Adrian Martinez has such a unique road to where he is now.
While we're talking about him, can I read? It's one of my favorite Wikipedia profiles ever, is Adrian Martinez, which is, this is the entire byline of his title. It's 3 sentences on his Wikipedia page. It is, Adrian Martinez is an American football quarterback for the Kansas State Wildcats. He previously played for the Nebraska Cornhuskers. He is not related to former Nebraska quarterback Taylor Martinez. That's his entire byline. They had to point out, hey, this guy who we all think is the same quarterback who was playing at Nebraska in 2014, it's not him. But Nebraska had a Martinez at quarterback for 7 consecutive seasons. And every season, they were either 6-6 or did not make a bowl game. They had to specifically put in his Wikipedia title, he is not related to the other Nebraska quarterback that you think he is.
It's kind of funny when you consider that he was almost the quarterback at Tennessee before ultimately committing to Scott Frost in Nebraska. And now we look at what Tennessee is this year. It would have been a long road to get there, given Tennessee had their own issues as well to getting to where they are now. But
I was going to say, if you look at Hendon Hooker's Virginia Tech stats, they don't look that dissimilar to Adrian Martinez's Nebraska stats.
There's a lot of things that shook up what Adrian Martinez was at Nebraska and never really developing into, again, he was a highly recruited guy coming out of high school. He was a desirable prospect. Now, as I mentioned, what they've been able to do at Kansas is hide him behind this prolific running game. Duece Vaughn is the type of running back that gives Texas nightmares, especially when we go back to the Oklahoma State game. Tackling. I've been saying this for Sark's entire time. Learn to tackle, wrap up, get people to the ground. Don't let these second, third, fourth, fifth efforts. Tackling 101 went awry in that Oklahoma State game, and one of the bigger reasons why they lost towards the end. I'm looking at this where you have a run game like Kansas State is bringing in. You have to get him in the backfield. You have to get him on the first opportunities, because if you don't, that's when we start getting into these game scripts that become harder and harder to work around. And this is going to be a big week, obviously, for Quinn Ewers, because he was awful against Oklahoma State. Awful, terrible. He was inaccurate. He couldn't hit water if he jumped off a boat in the middle of the ocean. What was it, 19 for 50 or something like that, including the 3 interceptions? Quinn needs a bounce back effort, and that's going to be on coaching. Whatever was going wrong, it's up to Steve Sarkisian, again, with 2 weeks of time. Andy Reid always comes back off a bye week and has a game plan. Steve, 2 weeks to figure this out with Bijan, Xavier Worthy, and a 5-star quarterback in Quinn Ewers. Get it done.
Can I tell you my favorite stat about Kansas State that I found in researching for this preview? Kansas State has played 8 football games this season so far. One of those games they played against Tulane, shout out to the Green Wave, and they actually lost to Tulane in that game. But Tulane is also, I think, the highest ranked group of 5 team right now. Technically, I think TCU is a group of 5 team, but Tulane is the highest ranked group of 5 team currently right now. So Kansas State in their other 7 games has had 4 games in which they allowed under 275 yards of offense, and 3 games in which they allowed over 500 yards of offense. So I don't know how to evaluate Kansas State's defense going into this game against Ewers and Bijan and Xavier Worthy, because 3 times they've gotten absolutely torched by like Texas Tech and Oklahoma, which are not the greatest football teams in the world this year, but they also held Oklahoma State and Missouri to under 250 yards of offense. So I don't know. Let's see what happens.
If I'm the coaching staff, I am just showing them the tape of what they were doing to Gundy's kid out there as his hands were shaking, preparing for the snap to come to him. You have to prepare as if that defense is showing up, and just be happy if you get the defense that was allowing, as you mentioned, over 500 yards a game. You have the offense, you have the offensive pieces to put up over 500 yards a game. That should not be the issue of this Texas Longhorns team. The issue is going to always boil down to defense for me. They've shown times in which it seems like they're improving. In many ways, Texas is very similar to what you're saying about Kansas State, where they can have the game, as you mentioned, against Alabama, where they're holding that offense. They're holding the former Heisman Trophy winner to a subpar outing, having more penalty yards than actual yards at one point. But they can also have games against Texas Tech where they allow over 30, or they allow over 30 to Oklahoma State in a comeback effort, or they're allowing Iowa State and their quarterback to hang around. That's the type of thing that we need answers for from this team. What is the resolve? And they're still on pace to do what we said in the preseason. They're still on pace to get that at least 8 wins, show that positive growth. But you had a wrench thrown in your plans by Kansas State actually being good this year, with Kansas being a team that could beat you, TCU being really good this year. You have teams that you didn't plan on being good that are good now. So they're going to make the roadmap a little bit harder for Texas as they try and close out the season. Obviously, horns up, I'm still planning on them winning this game. Don't let me down, guys. Don't let me down.
You said that Texas and Kansas State are similar to each other and that they have those big weeks and those games where they kind of lay flat. That's just the entire Big 12 this year, man. Yeah. The entire Big 12 is just like chaos and stupid. It's why I said at the start, like if Duece Vaughn goes for 20 carries for 46 yards and 0 touchdowns, well, I wouldn't be surprised. Dumber shit has happened in the Big 12 this year. Dumber shit happened last week with Kansas State and Oklahoma State. So I don't know. Dumb shit happens all the time. Texas would have to go 3-1 the rest of the way to get to 8-4. I think they're going to finish 7-5 at this point, which is not a disappointment. It's just not reaching the super awesome expectations.
Will be a disappointment. No way around it.
Okay.
We'll be a disappointment.
So if they're going to get to 8-4, they have to win this one because TCU, they're going to be underdogs in that game. Baylor's no walk in the park. They'll probably beat Kansas, but still, they probably got to win this game. For the first time, I'm going to go with Texas. I mean, I've picked Texas before in like the blowout games, but in one of these coin toss games, I'm going to roll with Texas this week. So Longhorns across the board.
Hey. All right, guys. Well, what is your prediction? Kansas State, Texas? Drop below in the comment section. Leave a like on the video. Subscribe to the channel. Follow us on social medias. And stay safe, happy, and healthy. From Juju and Kyle Ledbetter, we will see you next time.